Okay, Dwight, when I asked you what you wanted to do this particular tape for, you gave me a really good answer. Would you repeat that again, please?
Well, I thought it felt, when people ask you about your relatives, especially the older ones that have been in the past, you say, oh, here's a picture of Joe or Pete or somebody else or my uncle, grandpa. And say, oh, wasn't he, what was he? Oh, he's a nice guy. Well, I want people to know more than me just being a nice guy. I want them to know what I'm really like as a person, sort of a three-dimensional character, so that at least they know different aspects of me. So that's essentially, what
And would you call yourself a character?
Yeah, I think I'm a character.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just one of a kind, one Dwight.
Right. Right.
Now, since your grandchildren could be watching this, I don't know what age they'll be, but would you like to do something on camera that you've never done in your whole life and tell us something about you that you've never before revealed?
Oh boy, that is scary.
Yes.
To tell something about yourself that you never revealed. But I can tell you something about I've almost revealed everything about myself in the past, because I'm the kind of guy that not intimidated too easily, so I'll tell people almost everything. One of the things that I remember mostly is that I always wanted to have a good time in life, and work was something that just had to do in the background, but I wanted to be doing things that were fun all the time. So when things weren't really fun, I wanted to get out of it. If the work wasn't fun, I wanted to get out of it and get back to work and get back to having fun. So I've tried to do many things, and I've always been interested in the multitude of things that are out there. I'm a man of many hats. I like to do different things. This is one hat, and then I have another one here. This is another kind of a hat that I wear often, because I think, clothes make the person. So sometimes I wear this hat for a lot of the time. And I thought I could try many different things, and I've tried many different things. In fact, in college I majored in business, pre-med, and psychology, and just figured whatever one I got in would be fine. And then when I got out in life, I just wanted to try lots of different activities. And I did a lot of art for a while. Then I never always afraid of acting because I have a problem memorizing. So, but finally I did get into some plays where I took a long time memorizing things and acted plays. And then I one time saw a workshop that was on writing plays. I figured, hey, let's give it a chance. So I wrote the play, and luckily I had this wonderful director, Ramona, who decided that she would produce it for me and direct it for me and do all that type of thing, and it was just one of the best experiences I can remember at all. So at least this is fun. And another hat that I always wear, as I say, is an artist. I was an artist for some time, and about 25 years ago I started painting. I took lots of courses painting, and then I gave it up, and recently I've come back to doing abstract art. I even have my own website with lots of art pieces on it, so I've enjoyed that.
What type of art?
Abstract art.
Ah.
I like it's just a question of taking the paint, the colors, and putting them in different shapes and forms and how they blend together. Sort of like life. Different shapes and forms and how it blends together, and is it pleasing to the eye? Does it feel good?
Do you see it in your mind's eye first, or does it just occur
Nope.
on the canvas?
As it comes along.
Ah.
I don't have anything project. Sort of like life, walking down the path, As it comes along, you enjoy it and make the most of what you have.
Yeah. Well, I noticed all three of your hats were black. Does that mean you're kind of iconoclastic?
Not really.
Oh.
I have some. I have a fancy straw hat that I wear sometimes.
Well, I was thinking about the personality and the way that you look at life. I wouldn't say that you were a conservative, regular guy.
Nope.
Where do you think that you're most unusual from the norm?
Mostly probably in the different things that I like to do, and mostly on one of my jobs they used to call me bombastic, because I just let it out as I see it. I don't have much of a. I didn't get along too well with some of the bosses because I never played the game in life. I just told it like it was and see it like it is. So that's one way, I think. And the other way is I like to experience everything to know what the underlying dynamics of something is. You know, I built my house so that in a way that different parts of my house, so I know how architects work and how builders have to work. And I acted in plays, I know what goes on behind stage. And having written a play, it's interesting to know what's involved in writing a play and getting the dialogue right. And being an artist, I know what it's like painting and trying to promote yourself as an artist. So all those different things, and being a professor at a university, I know the games that go on at universities on that type of thing. So all those things are fascinating to me to know what the underlying dynamics of all various aspects of life are.
Well, you know, I didn't know you were a professor till just this moment. What were you instructing?
Psychology at the University of Mass at Amherst.
Oh.
I was in charge of a PhD program in industrial psychology.
Uh-huh. Did you start out that way when you were in college? Did you know that's what you wanted, or did it gravitate because of an incident, or?
No, I always been interested in psychology. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And whenever I behaved badly, my father would look at me and say, "And you are going to be a psychologist with that kind of behavior?" But anyways, I always am interested in what makes people tick. What are their motivation? What's the underlying dynamic? Why do they do this? What goes on in their mind? So I've always been interested in that. And as it turned out, psychology, although I dabbled in things like medicine, I tried to get in medical school and couldn't get in, and it turns out that was great. Because it turned out psychology is really the nucleus of what I think I'm suited for.
Well, would you describe the 3 characteristics that are the nucleus of you?
One is probably that I am upfront and open. I just tell it like it is, probably to my detriment sometimes. There's no doubt about that. The other one is the curiosity I have about things, and I'm really interested in other people. I mean, I could spend all day talking to people, and I'm really interested in knowing what makes them tick, why they did this, and where they're going, because I like the idea of knowing what life is about. And whenever somebody, we went on this cruise and I saw these so-called wealthy people, and I always look at a wealthy guy and I said, "Yeah, but what gave you that break? You know, how did you make it? What was the thing? Who was your mentor?" And I always just like to ask them questions like that to find out, how did you get here? Because nobody gets there on their own.
And the third one?
The third one, I don't know if I can think of a third one. I think it's that what was the question about my person?
Well, the 3 characteristics that you would use to
I
describe
love
yourself.
women. I love women. I've been chasing women all my life, as soon as I got old enough. And that wasn't until I got in college.
Really? Were you a virgin when you got in college?
Pretty much. Oh, yeah, and all through college. Because I was young. I started college at 16. So I was behind the 8 ball, and that was when all the veterans came back in college. And so I was a kid, and I never really knew how to make the moves. I never knew how to present myself and how to relate. So later on in life, when I got out, I had a good time, and I think I really liked that because I love women.
Tell us about your first love in this lifetime.
First love, that would be, well, I really don't want to go into that because it ended up in divorce. So I could say that my first love was a woman that was a young lady who was 17 years younger than me. Very naive, but I really don't spend much time with her anymore.
But as a psychologist, what did you learn about yourself from that relationship?
What I learned was that she was, not myself, but she was very young, and people don't know their own mind when they're young. And we got caught up in the whole trend of the 60s, where everything was wild and crazy, and that leads to all sorts of problems in people who haven't developed yet.
Yeah.
So what I learned about myself was that this wasn't the cup of tea for me. Yeah, and it was, it was a tough, probably 10 years while I was getting over that, because I had two small kids that were 2 and 4 years old at the time.
And how many grandchildren do you have now?
Right now, I got 4 of mine and 7 of my love Marys.
Wow. 11, that's a very spiritual number.
That is.
And how would you describe yourself spiritually?
I am a guy that believes that the universe is created probably for people to try to find and be kind in it and hope that that's going to be the result. You know, that's the kind of thing that I feel spiritually, that people should be kind to one another. And life is a gamble. You know, thank God that my father was horny sometimes, because otherwise I'd probably never be here. Because it was just an accident to start with. My mother wasn't supposed to have any more kids, probably. And ever since then, I realized, when I look at other people, they want us, most of them, I don't feel are as lucky as I am. Because, you know, you're lucky if you're born with a good brain and a healthy body. And my answer is, I think you have to be considerate of others less fortunate than you, that don't have that streak of luck. So that's the underlying dynamic, I think, of living in a civilized society with other people. That you have to, if you're going to be with other people, you have to take into consideration that you never do it by yourself. And if you're lucky, compassion should be part of to be concerned about other people who didn't get the best deal that you got.
The golden rule.
The golden rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, they said that we're most like our parent of the sex of the body we're in until they die. And then we start to expand into more of our own personal consciousness. Was there things that you resisted about your dad and things that you loved about your dad?
Just loved about my dad. My favorite person. He was the smartest guy I ever knew. Well-read. Never raised his voice like I do. I got some bad qualities that he wouldn't like. Never used a foul word. I mean, that I ever heard in life. A very calm person and very compassionate, thoughtful, and a self-made entrepreneur. You know, came from the old country, Bessarabia, when he was 15 on the boat, and had to make it all on his own, you know, and he did very well, and I always admired him. We used to spend hours talking about everything, and he probably had a lot to do with making me the person that I am.
And what trait do you think that manifests most from him?
Probably at least my compassion and thoughtfulness about others, because he was always concerned about that. And I think he had the same stick-to-itiveness that I do, that you can do anything, because he was into many different kinds of things, no matter what it is. And I feel this way. I feel there's almost anything I can do at least above average. Maybe not perfect. I don't think I could be a neurosurgeon without a little bit of practice. But I would say that the idea that tackle it and figure out a way to do almost anything that you want to go after.
Well, that's pretty wonderful to grow up with a parent that says you can do anything that you choose to do.
And he did, all the time. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful trait to have.
Were you able to apply that to your own kids?
I think so. I'm very proud of them. They're both people doing almost anything they want to do. They're very bright. I think they must have got most of their genetic traits from me. Probably.
How do you think your children would describe you?
I think my daughter always says that she's taken after me, because she's a promoter. She's a what you'd call an advocate. She's out there, you know, to just be an advocate for people and you know, somebody that's in the forefront all the time, more than I am. So she always says, "Oh, I learned it from you, Dad." And my son, he's on the quiet side, but he's still got that. He's still smart as a whip, and he's a shrewd operator, and he likes women. So there you go.
Well, you know, you described yourself as someone who really likes women.
Right.
What are the most important things you've learned about women?
They have a raw deal in the world, Generally, they got a raw deal in the world. And if you want to go back in time and see what the world is like, you just have to go visit countries now, like India or Afghanistan, or see what the world was like in biblical times, because that's the way, you know. And I always think you can measure a civilization, how it's advanced, by how they treat their women. So, I like women. I want them to be independent, and free, and smart. It's nice if they're beautiful too, but I never used to say, "Look at my beautiful daughter." I'd say, "Look at my smart and intelligent daughter." That's as a point I would make that, although she's attractive.
Well, I'm sure that your grandchildren would love to know your love story. You and Mary have been together how long now?
15 years.
Has it been that long? Oh, my.
15 years next month. It'll be 15 years.
So I must have known
January.
you 20 years then. Oh my God, I didn't
Yes.
realize that.
Yeah.
Well, would you tell us the love story between you and Mary, how you met?
Well, through an ad in the newspaper.
Oh,
I put an ad, and of all places, being the liberal guy that I am, I normally would advertise in the free liberal hanky-panky paper called The New Times. It's called around here. It's one of those things they put out every week. It's free. But this one time, I put an ad in the conservative newspaper, The Republic. That only time I put it in there, and because she answered that ad. She's the kind of person who would never look at that other rag, that other newspaper. And we had coffee.
whoa. What was the ad? What did the ad say?
Oh, as I remember the ad, it said something, free spirit maybe, or something Unitarian writer, or something. I think it had that issue in it, something about being a writer and a Unitarian author or something like that, looking for probably somebody they had to be a good dancer. Because I like the jitterbug and dance, and I don't know if I put that in the ad or not, but I put something to that effect that I was a writer and a philosopher or something like that who liked to talk, because I want somebody that I could spend a lot of time talking with. And she answered the ad, and she was very good when she answered the ad, because she said things like, "Now I'm not a size 16, and I'm not a size 14, but maybe I'm a size 12." She was upfront about it, and then she went and said that something about she enjoyed, I don't know what it was, certain things, but her manner was such that it sounded interesting. Somebody had to be upfront about themselves. So we had coffee at a little place called Randy's at the time up there out in Scottsdale. And I never took women out to dinner. I'm a cheap guy. I mean, I think, you're going to know in 5 minutes if you like them. I'm not going to go out and I don't want to spend the time with them if I don't like them. So I just have a cup of coffee, and maybe not much more than a cup of coffee. I offered her a sandwich this time, so I knew she knew she was in. And we had a good time there, and that same evening, she was brave enough to get in my convertible and go for a ride up the mountain to watch the sunset, which we did, and we've been together ever since. I had a date the next day that I couldn't cancel, but after that, married all along. Yeah.
When you first laid eyes on her, do you remember what you felt or thought?
I remember the outfit she had on too. It was a tan outfit, and I thought, very respectable, very nice. And the way she talked was easy to converse with her. She was upfront about everything, which was good. Just talking like it was, and we just you can tell people right away if you're comfortable, if it just flows, if there's not any pretense. So she's a woman probably like myself in a way that, in many ways, doesn't put on a front and tries to, at least with me, and it was very good.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything the two of you co-create together that you would like to share with the grandchildren?
Well, let's see. She is my right-hand man for everything. Right-hand woman, I would say. That, and I'm always looking for somebody. I always wanted a buddy that I could hang around with and do everything with. Like if I'm building something, she'll hold the wood for me, or if I'm holding something, she'll do this thing. And nowadays, with the computer, even making this video, I need her desperately to figure out a lot of the things that are in the computer, how to blend it and how to do the audio and this thing, and she's right there, and she's got the patience of Job. I mean, I just lose it right away, and it's a good thing that I don't have kids around because I have a foul mouth, and she comes in, and if it doesn't work the first time and it all falls apart, she'll start over from the beginning and do the thing, which is just wonderful, a wonderful kind of thing to have. And she's a good sport. And I took her home when I first met her to see if she could dance. We put on a record, and she's a good dancer. I mean, not as probably, I might have, who knows what would have happened if she could dance. But she's a great dancer. And I like to dance with her. And we jitterbug, and, we do lots of, we do everything together, which is great. She's a good support, and I try to support her in the things that she does.
That's wonderful. Now, what's the trait that you have that would require the most patience from Mary?
Oh, geez, I feel so bad when require the, but I know I feel so bad when I yell something that doesn't come right, and I look and I frequently say to myself, oh, geez, if she did that to me, I would be devastated. But she's a good sport, and she takes it into account. But the question was, what would the...
Well, what personal trait do you have that she is being very patient with you?
Well, my yelling.
Okay.
Putting up with that, and and I don't know how she does it, but because every time after I do it, I think, and I'm empathetic in the way I think. Now, if she had said that to me, boy, would I be pissed. But anyways, it's a nice combination.
Okay. And having a successful best friend, wonderful companion, 15-year relationship, which the average relationship nowadays is 2 years.
Right.
What would you pass on to your children and grandchildren about how to co-create a good relationship?
Number one, don't have preconceived ideas, because one of the things I thought ahead of time was I used to put ads in that I wanted a hippie kind of person, like I thought like I was. And, none of those people worked out. And here's Mary, I thought, she's probably had, at that time, she ain't going to admit this, but I think maybe had Republican leanings, because she belonged to the country club that had all these wealthy people, and they were bankers and all that kind of stuff. And, I thought that would never work. But as it turned out, living with me all these years, I think she just became very open-minded, and not that she wasn't open-minded before, but I think she just was not an issue that shouldn't have been an issue, and it isn't an issue, because if somebody cares about you, and of course the other thing is, I'm propounding these ideas day and night, all the time, about how I look at the world, and you couldn't live with me if you didn't sort of feel the same way that I feel. And after a while, she is a better proponent of my values than I am.
Ah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
And finally, what gift would you give if there was no restriction in any way on ideas or materiality or feelings? What gift would you give to your grandchildren?
This is the gift I'd give to everybody. Self-esteem. You've got to love who you are, and when you look in that mirror, you've got to think, I like what I see, not only my body, but who I am as a person. If you have that, you have got the world by a tail. But if you don't have it, you should work to try to get it and find out why you don't have it, because that's the wonderful gift that I would hope that my kids have, and that all kids would have growing up, that they like who they are.
That's good. Now, as a psychologist, give us a couple examples of how you would get there if you had low self-esteem.
Well, one thing, I think what gives people self-esteem is doing things and being successful at it. So one of the things I would advise parents, is don't be helping your kids too much. If you can climb a tree by yourself, that's successful. If you climb the tree with somebody helping you and giving you a lift, you're a partial tree climber. It's when you get to do things that you can say, look what I did. And you'll see it from little kids. They always want to say, leave me, I can do it, and you ought to let them do it and be successful in everything, every step in life. And I worked my way through college, and that makes me feel good, because I know that it gives me feels that, hey, I'm successful. I can do this on my own. And that's the gift I would hope that every kid would have.
Lovely gift. Anything else you want to add?
Not really. I think that it's been covered well, and I think that sort of tells who I am.
Okay. Well, warm hugs to you, your children, and your grandchildren.
Thanks, Ramona.